Good morning. We're grateful to gather online this morning as the Unitarian Universalist Society for inspiration, music, learning, and conversation. If you are visiting our service today, welcome. We hope you find the service meaningful. I'm Peggy Garrigus, Director of Congregational Life, and your Zoom host for this morning. As Unitarian Universalists, we don't all believe the same things, but we affirm 6 sources for our living tradition. One of those sources is direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. This morning, as with many of our summer services, we have a guest speaker. UUS member Andy Douglas will be offering the message today, and John Bowman is our worship associate. Dave Rowe, our online music leader, has recorded several of the musical pieces this morning, along with Stacy Guth, his partner, and Ian Colley, and members of the UUS choir. Russ Lent, our AV volunteer for this morning, is running the slides for our service. And now over to Reverend Diana for a special announcement as she just comes back from her time away.
Good morning. It is wonderful to be back with y'all today. I am delighted to be with you as a member of the congregation this morning. And I'm looking forward to being back beginning leading services next week. Today, as we get started, I wanted to introduce you to 2 new staff members who have just joined us. Alex and Marcia, would you turn on your videos so people can start to see you? There you go. So Alex and Marcia have just joined UUS. Alex Heatland is our new Director of Congregational Music, and Marcia Thrall is our new Director of Lifespan Religious Education. They've both just begun their employment here at UUS, and next week we'll have an opportunity to greet them more fully, as well as say goodbye to Dave Rowe, who's been our online music leader. So now, Alex and Marcia, would you like to say hi to everybody just briefly this morning?
I'll just say hi. It's I don't have much voice today, but it's nice to meet everybody virtually. I hope to meet some people in person sometime soon. Looking forward to working with you all.
Good morning. I am happy to be here, and I am really excited about all of the good work we're about to do together.
Thanks, Marcia and Alex. So next week, as I said, we'll have a chance to meet Alex and Marcia more fully, as well as say goodbye to Dave. And so for now, though, let's turn this over to John and to John Bowman, who will call us to gather.
Good morning. My name is John Bowman, a worship associate and member of the Unitarian Universalist Society. Today we will be hearing from Andy Douglas, a longtime member of this congregation. Andy is a crafter of words, a lover of song, a seeker of beauty, and a supporter of small good deeds. His books include Redemption Songs, A Year in the Life of a Community Prison Choir, and The Curve of the World, Into the Spiritual Heart of Yoga. He is a member, has been a member of the UUS for 3 years. His message today is titled, Everything is Sacred, Lessons from the Path of Tantra. In these times of change, it is so important to be together, to come together as a spiritual community to gain the sustenance that we need and to help nourish each other. As members of a faith that expresses our core value of love through how we agree to be together and to support each other, it is good to come together and affirm that we, even when we are not together in body, this congregation remains strong and connected. And to affirm that wherever any of us is on our life's journey, whether we come to worship with joy in our hearts, weighed with burdens, in need of rest, or searching for people to engage in the struggle with us, we are glad, and this community is glad that we are here. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we once again know that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. And now Dave Rowe will lead us in the opening hymn, Comfort Me.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, O my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, O my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
Thank you, Dave, for that beautiful and soulful rendition. As Unitarian Universalists, we light a flame with the chalice as a symbol of sanctuary and safety, to unite us in our worship and to remind us of our ongoing search for truth and light, for the light of truth. So if you will respond with me. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the wonder and mystery of this great gift. So now let us kindle the flame of our liberal religious heritage and renew our covenant of mutual love and care. Love is our doctrine. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to serve those in need. This we promise, this we covenant with life and one another. Each week we light a candle for justice and healing. We hold space for our feelings of rage and heartbreak over the ongoing pandemics of illness and racism and the waves of trauma washing over our world. In this time when we are not yet back together in person because of the COVID pandemic that continues to take a terrible toll on people who are most vulnerable and shine light on the long-standing injustice and suffering, we light this candle to help us hold space together for processing what is happening in our world. We light this candle that we may not be numb to injustice, authoritarianism, illness, and trauma, but rather find strength, courage, and love to continue engaging with the struggles for liberation, justice, and healing. And today, as we light this candle, we're particularly mindful of the suffering caused by the fires across the Western states, the rising number of COVID cases in so many parts of our country and around the globe. Now, as we listen to the centering music, feel free to use the chat function to say that your candle is lit. This morning's Time for All Ages story was written by UU ministers, the Reverend Molly Hush Gordon and the Reverend Jamie Batchelder. It is called The Cycle That Connects Us. Rain falls upon the surface of the earth. Pulled by gravity, each drop begins to flow downhill. Drop merges with drop, flowing together into a trickle, a streamlet, a creek, a mighty river flowing onward. Some of the water seeps down into the earth itself as groundwater, or deep aquifers, where it will stay for days, years, even a millennia, until it's pulled up again by tree roots, wells, springs, and geysers, rejoining the dance, the flowing, flowing, flowing. The water flows on until it connects in ponds, lakes, seas, and vast oceans. And all the while, the sun's rays warm the water, calling it into vapor. So the light can rise up, 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 each molecule, moving on its own again, rising into the higher atmosphere, buoyant and swirling up to where the air grows cool and the water vapor slows and cools and begins to turn again back to droplets. Droplets find droplets and join together and together and again, forming clouds, growing heavier, heavier, until at last the weight of them pulls them down again, and rain falls on the surface of the earth once again. Everywhere on earth, at every moment, is somewhere in the cycle, cycles upon cycles, falling, flowing, sinking, transforming, rising again and again and again. Our planet has all the water that it will ever have and has ever had. This water cycle has been spiraling around and around for more than 4.5 billion years. This morning, we also remember that the water cycle doesn't only involve rivers and plants and clouds, but also involves creatures. The water cycles through us too, coming in and out of our bodies in many different ways. And during this long, hot, and dry summer, we are reminded of how precious water is and of how life-sustaining water is for all of us. Excuse me. How we give, what we do with our lives, our time, and our resources is a reflection of our values. Every week, in response to the abundance we are blessed with, excuse me, this congregation donates generously to organizations in the community whose work aligns with our values and principles. Our community partner agency this month is the Free Medical and Dental Clinic. The clinic is a nonprofit organization established in 1971. The devoted staff there believes that access to affordable health care is a basic human necessity. They strive to provide the widest range of medical and dental services possible to people in Iowa City and the surrounding community, those who would not otherwise have access to care. On the screen, you will see instructions for how to give online, or you may write a check and send it to UUS. You may support our community partner, contribute to the congregation to provide additional support for our operating expenses, or contribute toward your pledge to our society. The offering is a sign of commitment to this free congregation, which is completely supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join us. As we give and receive the offering, may we be transformed by our giving, and may the world be transformed by our gifts.
나의 모모타보라 하시테 무쿠타초라 나의 모모타보라 하시테 무쿠타초라 오자나 포티게 Ojana potike 아시테 무쿠타자 어잖아 포티게 에로 어잖아 포티게 에로 모노자 히쇼다테키 러제 보이나 히타키 모노자 히샤라테키 러제 보이나 히타키 에마도라 모도코타 제로 에모두라 모르고자 지로
This morning's reading is from Reverend Johnston. I made a beautiful piece of art in a mosaic class this summer, but there were times when I was frustrated at my own limits. The teacher used the tools with ease. When I used them, it was clumsy. Still, the teacher showed me how to use the tool. She never offered to do it for me, which meant that by practicing, I figured it out for myself. I also learned that there were two ways for us to turn large sheets of glass into smaller, usable pieces. The intentional precision of a pistol-handled glass cutter, or using a ball-peen hammer and a thwack of force. Each method renders very different results, both of which are necessary. The beauty of our mosaics emerged from a mixture of precision and chaos, control and surrender. I had arrived to class with a design in mind, but the further along I got, transferring the design from paper to wood, the less the mosaic looked like my original drawing, which was all for the better. Vision is essential, but I had to hold mine loosely so the final project could reveal itself to me along the way. From this class, I gleaned plenty of wisdom for life beyond the artist's studio. As much as you can, surround yourself with skillful teachers, no matter what you are learning. Let them teach you, but don't let them do it for you. That learning is yours to do. Respect the fragments and shards, whether they're multi-hued glass or your life's own story. Yes, they offer the occasional sharp cut, but they can also offer beauty and new ways to perceive the world. Resist the urge to fully map out the future. Instead, cultivate humility, a sign of strength, not weakness. Find within you the capacity to trust, no matter how small, and grow that. May you get through this life not unscathed, but with all your broken parts available for you to piece together into a beautiful whole. I invite you to join me in a guided meditation. Please sit comfortably with your back straight, your eyes closed, and breathe deeply. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. As you breathe, visualize that you are in a place of great peace, solitude, and serenity. Perhaps at the seashore, feeling the gentle waves washing up and touching you. Imagine that you are being held that the waves are like the arms of love enveloping you. Like an infant, you are being held. You are safe. Lay back in the arms of love. Take 20 seconds to feel that infinite love embracing you.
Mhm. During the meditative music, you may tell us in the chat what is in your hearts and mind.
Good morning. It's great to be with you this morning. You know, as you use, we draw our inspiration in part from the various religious teachings and traditions of the world. And today I want to share some insights about one lesser known tradition. In the winter of 1986, I found myself traveling to the southernmost tip of the Philippines, to the city of Davao on Mindanao Island. I was headed for a yoga training center where I would study and work and meditate with the goal of becoming a monk in this particular Eastern spiritual order. I had come to Asia a few years earlier. I was a seeker, and I had the good fortune to meet in India a teacher in the tradition of Tantra yoga. Tantra may conjure up various exotic imaginings for you, or you may never have heard of it at all. Briefly stated, Tantra is about seeing the world as sacred, as the evolutionary expression of the divine. Tantra sees the body, mind, and spirit as integrated dynamic forces, and it encourages you to learn from everyone and everything you encounter. Let me take a moment to address any misconceptions you might have about Tantra. Here in the West, Tantra has often been associated with sex, the union of masculine and feminine energy. There is a small part of Tantra that deals with that, but it has little to do with the spiritual path of Tantra I'll be talking about today. Sorry to disappoint you. However, I think you'll find this interesting with principles that can speak to our daily lives. Tantra is the indigenous spiritual tradition of South Asia. It influenced both Hinduism and Buddhism before the ritualistic Vedas arrived in India, bringing a divisive caste system. There was the intensely practical, democratic Tantra, rooted in basic human psychology. In one Sanskrit derivation, the word Tantra means weave, representing the web of existence. The word can also be translated as liberation through expansion. As I mentioned, I was a seeker. I wanted to somehow be of service to others. I wanted to dedicate myself to something greater than my own ever-clamoring ego. The glimpses I'd gotten of this path hinted at these possibilities. Though the tradition was rooted in India, it had sent out shoots in the form of ashrams to various parts of the world. And so I came to the Philippines. Arriving in Davao late at night, I could see the lights of the training center shining down from a hill above the city. There in the open-air meditation hall, young men sat, their backs straight, eyes closed, absorbed in some other world. It was an atmosphere of peace. I felt at home. As it turns out, it was not always so peaceful there. I was living with 30 other young men from all around the world. The routine was demanding. The food was pretty uninteresting. Incessant heat and rain beat down on this island city. At some point, I contracted a foot infection and couldn't walk for 6 weeks. On top of this, Mindanao was in the grip of a guerrilla war. Gunfire sometimes rang out across the countryside as rebels tangled with paramilitary groups. We were safe enough, but it was unsettling, as if we were teetering on the edge of civilization. You might think that monks in training would be uniformly gentle and kind. You would be wrong. Personality clashes were common, and it took time to grow into the role. And in the meantime, as we threw ourselves into this way of life, the stumbling blocks of ego, anger, jealousy, pride, seized the opportunity to take center stage. I was 8,000 miles from my home country, my health a bit precarious, leaping into a new and challenging way of life. How would I find the resilience to deal with all of this? Basically, it was by putting into practice the lessons I was presented with. I should emphasize that Tantra is a very practical path, not about abstract ideals, but about embodied realizations. To begin with, there was meditation. We meditated in the early morning hours. We meditated into the night. We embraced the maxim, as you think, so you become. Meditate on positivity, you become more positive. Meditate on divinity, you come closer to divinity. It took time, but I began to see a profound truth in this. Music was also very important. The Bengali song we just heard during the offertory is one of many I fell in love with during my time in Asia that express a relationship with the divine. And there was kirtan, a spiritual practice involving singing and dancing that allows you to focus your sacred longings in an embodied way. I have a fond memory of standing under the eaves of the outdoor meditation hall, rain crashing down for hours at a time, singing kirtan with a few close friends, getting higher and higher. Some of you know that I lead a kirtan circle through the UUS. Daily yoga exercises kept our bodies flexible and healthy. We grew in awareness of the subtle relationship between our bodies and our minds. Fasting was another wonderful practice, giving our digestive systems a nice rest, lessening our attachment to food, strengthening our resolve in other areas of life. There was also a daily practice of self-examination. Along with these practices, I was learning the overarching principles that tie Tantra together as well. In Tantra Yoga, there are 4 key principles or ways of being. The first is flow. You've probably heard of the flow state, a psychological state of complete immersion in an activity that leads to unself-conscious creativity. It's a serendipitous condition of ease, of letting go of one's ego and letting something else, perhaps grace, take over. It requires patience, humility. Living in the flow is akin to beginner's mind, not feeling that you know everything. In fact, feeling that you know nothing, but are open to learn. In Davao, I had to commit to the idea of not sweating the little things and just let what was going to happen, happen. Not get bent out of shape when the food sucked, or people snored, or farted during meditation, or got angry or disagreed with me. Letting go, lying back in the arms of divine love. Committing to aligning myself with a deeper flow. The second quality is expansion. The path of Tantra encourages a movement in life from ignorance to wisdom, from selfishness to compassion. Daily practice softens and widens the heart and mind and creates an ever-expanding circle of concern, no longer limited to just those we know and love, but expanding outward to include every other being. Those we come into contact with are not strangers, but fellow travelers in our caravan. And by others, I don't just mean human beings, but also plants and animals. This may lead to a desire to not eat animals, or a desire to understand the forests and rivers of our planet and help them to thrive. Once I began to sink into the practices, the experience of expansion, of seeing the big picture, helped me have compassion for those around me, for the trainee who continually ate more than his fair share, the people I met in the marketplace in Davao, even those engaged in the war. And to have compassion for myself and my many, many failings. Because when you begin to relax your ego defenses and you're living in a communal environment, there's really nowhere to hide from your own weaknesses. So you go deeper. You follow the path. I begin to see the strength in the diversity of humanity around me, how we learned from each other, appreciated each other's personal and cultural strengths, focusing on positives. As a small example, the Filipino sense of familial closeness and love of music and singing never failed to move me. You can also see how this kind of a mental expansion leads to a social justice orientation. You realize that others love their lives just as much as you love yours. Everyone deserves food, clothing, shelter, employment, justice. I believe that such heart expansion naturally defies racism and sexism, classism and patriarchalism, and capitalism, which focuses on the success of a few to the detriment of many. but that's another sermon. The third value or way of being is service. One little act of kindness offered in a time of need can change a life forever or plant a necessary seed. Service is a natural extension of flow and expansion, cultivating a compassionate heart, keeping others' welfare in mind. Being ready to leap in and serve without hesitation. Also, in this framework, not being attached to the results of one's actions, serving and letting go. My brothers and I in Davao regularly cooked up a big pot of sweet rice to feed kids living in a nearby slum. When we did this, something significant happened. We found our self-preoccupations and our conflicts dropping away. We became united in service. This leads me to the fourth point, the fourth way of being or value of Tantra, oneness. The ultimate goal of this path is to become one with what is, with God, you could say. This may seem a bit obscure. Contemplatives and mystics in many traditions and times have expressed a feeling of oneness, a sense of unity as they deepen their practice. The little I have tasted of it leads me to say it is a feeling of great love. In this framework of moving toward oneness, there is no concept of heaven, no hell, only the clarifying movement of consciousness, yoked to the purifying power of love. Some of the ideas of tantric spirituality have found validation in the field of quantum physics. In 1929, Werner Heisenberg spent time in India with the great poet and mystic Rabindranath Tagore. He said, "This introduction to Indian spirituality brought me great comfort. It had previously been difficult for me to accept that relativity, interconnectedness, and impermanence could be fundamental aspects of physical reality." Indeed, Tantra recognizes that everything is in motion. Everything is composed of waves. Everything is impermanent. Tantra, however, sees consciousness as a subtler counterpoint to the energy and matter that compose the physical universe. So I did survive my time in Davao, and I went on to become a monk for a few years. I loved the spare beauty, the commitment of the life. I later returned to the States, moving from celibacy back to the possibility of relationship, another way of being. But these practices and goals have continued to serve me over the last 30-some years. The cultivation of a compassionate embrace of every situation you encounter. The idea that obstacles are there to show you how to use your energies, to think creatively, to struggle, and from struggle comes growth. In recent years, I have added into the mix more attention to vulnerability, honoring my feelings, paying attention to the inevitable dance of attachment and loss. I'm going to shift gears just a bit and share an anecdote. A few years ago, during a concert at the Englert, it was a concert by Kishibashi. I don't know if anyone knows this musician. He's pretty great. He asked everyone in the audience during the pause between songs, he asked everyone in the audience to turn to the person next to them and say, "I will disappoint you." I happened to be sitting next to a stranger, and we turned to each other and said, "I will disappoint you." It was pretty hilarious, but also kind of profound, because although we do our best to be there for each other, we will also disappoint each other. We change, we grow apart, we get sick, and we pass away. And that's okay. If you understand that this is simply a part of how things are, it softens the blow when loss occurs. This is a tantric stance. Love wholeheartedly, but with the understanding that the things of this world are temporary. The universe is constantly changing. We know that change can bring a sense of loss, and loss can mean grief. It's inevitable, but facing it head on offers opportunities to feel both our sorrow and our joy more deeply. In the context of a supportive community, grief is manageable if we slow down, breathe, realize that this too shall pass. So in conclusion, I'd like to suggest that in the spirit of Tantra, we embrace change, that we keep our minds and bodies healthy, that we undertake spiritual practices, practice creativity, compassion, and balance, step into the flow, serve, expand our consciousness, our awareness, our circle of concern, and feel the resilience that comes from an embrace of profound principles. Please join me in singing our closing hymn, Spirit of Life.
Please join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again.
Let us see the sacred in all things. Let us choose love over fear. Let us continue to grow and expand our horizons. Let us merge ourselves in the divine flow, serve others, and recognize the connections that sustain us. May it be so.